the benefit of identification, you can start by telling us your name, please, and with regard to 1990, where were you on that day and what was your experience?
My name is Sookram Ali. On radio, I had the sobriquet, The Ultimate Selector. On Friday, 27th July 1990, I was on duty at Radio Trinidad Broadcasting Company Limited, 11B Marval Road, Port of Spain. And at about 5:30 p.m., it was a Friday, some young men stormed the radio station. I, along with 12 other employees, were in the building on duty. I had just finished working in the live studio and was recording in two of our production studios at the same time, Studio 3 and Studio 2. So I was doing a dub in Studio 3 and I walked towards Studio 2. From the entrance of Studio 2, you can see the parking lot over the head of the guard. Because at Radio Trinidad, at about 5:30, we will close the official entrance and use the overnight and weekend entrance, which is a little south of the first door. When I was about to walk into Studio 2, I saw a group of young men jogging towards the back of the building. It was nothing new, nothing different, because a lot of people normally use the car park behind Tatel and Radio Trinidad for exercising purposes. I went in to Studio 2, just checked to see what I had there. And when I came back out, there was a guy standing about 10 feet away with a very long gun. And he said to me, "Lie here." So I complied. And I lied right next to one of my colleagues, Darwin Watson. Darwin whispered to me, "What is going on?" And I said, "I don't know." Just to give you an overview of what happened is that there were 12 of us in the building. Emmett Henderson was walking down the front step from the administrative section where he saw some guys trying to break into the front door with guns. So he ran up the stairs, ran to the third floor, and went down the fire exit. By that time, they had succeeded in coming to the building and they ran behind him. And when he was going down the fire escape, they fired a shot at him that hit him on one of his legs. He continued running, jumped from the building to the ground, and then scaled the fence, and he escaped. Pius Mason was right at the front door talking to the security, Darren Watson. When they came in, one of the guys told Pius, "Stand against the wall, put up your hands." The other one said, "Lie down here." And Pius was a kind of fidgety guy, so he wasn't sure which instruction to follow. So he tried to do both. And one of the guys, he seemed to be aggressive, and they shot him in his lower abdomen, and he was bleeding. The other people in the building were Harold Thompson, Steve Sutherland, Edison Carr, Arthur Green, Patrick Goodrich, Darwin Watson, Michael London, Cheryl Haywood, MacDonald Holder, and Sookram Ali. Pius was taken to the hospital, and the 10 of us stayed. It's a little longer story where Cheryl went with him, and they told Cheryl, "Well, you know, your husband Mac is here, so make sure you come back." And she did come back, which is an amazing story also. So Pius was taken to the hospital. Emmett made his way to the hospital. The 10 of us stayed there for 4 nights and 3 days. So after lying next, because the configuration of the building that time is that we had a mobile studio which we used to do live broadcasts from the malls and different places. And at that time, it was being used to do live broadcasts on 9.5. So as soon as they enter the lobby in the overnight entrance, there was the mobile studio, then the security guard. So I was instructed, along with the security, Darwin Watson, to lie next to the 9.5 mobile studio. Shortly after, within a few minutes, we were led by another young man with a gun further inside the building, where some other employees were already gathered, and we were told to sit right outside Studio 3, which is also outside Studio 4. At that time, there were probably about six of us. The others were asking what is going on, and nobody seemed to know. One of the guys said, and this is new information, I haven't seen any media house talking about this ever since 1990 to now. One of the guys said that the statue for Gene Miles was the last straw. I'll go into more details later on. About 15 minutes after, we were then led down the stairs in front of the library and into the newsroom control room. It was a small room where we had a telephone, receiving lines, and a whole set of equipment where the newsroom will conduct interviews and record it and dub and so on. So we were all sitting there, and then they brought in about 4 more. Edison Carr came in, and he was seated right next to me on the floor. And Edison Carr whispered to me that police headquarters is on fire. Because apparently while all this was going on, Edison was in the newsroom and he got a report that police headquarters was on fire. And he was organizing himself to go down to see what's happening. He was on duty in the newsroom. So Harold next to me, hearing Edison saying something, asked me what he said. And I said, coup. Because once Edison said police headquarters was on fire, then I realized it wasn't us alone. My first thoughts were that maybe somebody said something on air and somebody was displeased, so they came to do something, but it had nothing to do with us. So we just waited to see what was happening. Later on, and I could bring up at this point, during the statement I had to give to the police, and I was asked if when they came in, if I was afraid. And I told the officer no, and he was surprised. So he said, why? I said, well, I came out of a studio. A guy with a long gun said, lie here. So I complied. What else could I do? I couldn't run through the wall or escape or anything. If somebody with a long gun tells you to lie there, lie there. So I complied, and I was just trying to figure out what happened. Later on, there were other emotions as I'll talk about. Right. So from there, we stayed there for a couple of hours in the news center, all 10 of us. And we were guarded by a guy in his 40s who was talking to us. He said he was from Belmont. And he asked each of us to state our name and religion. So we started from a side. I was more or less in the middle of the room. So it had about 5 before they got to me. But I always go by the premise that in good times and in bad times, and especially under trying situations, you speak the truth. Because if you confuse it by giving misinformation, it will be difficult down the road to retrieve that. So when they came to me, I said, Sookram Ali, Roman Catholic. And the guy started off on a lecture there. I got very bored. Saying, Sookram Ali, that's the worst thing, and he kept on carrying on there. Well, after a while, I just turned off and stopped listening to what he was saying. But he went on for about 20 minutes talking about that. Right? And afterwards, he continued with the rest. So we were just sitting there. It was calm. We were all calm and we relaxed there. And then another group came and they said, right, we need to put back all the radio stations on the air. So apparently when they came, they went into central control and they unjacked everything and they instructed the person to take everything off the air. So they said, who is the most recognizable people to do that? And among the group, they said, well, Patrick Goodrich was the most senior person to operate the central control. Edison Carr was the most recognizable voice among us. So Patrick will go into central control. Edison will be the voice. And they all said Sookram Ali is the one who knows all about the different types of music and knows all about all the equipment. So he should be that person. And so I said that we need to go and get whatever music you require from the library because we don't really keep all the music in the live studio. So they said, right, we'll go into the library. I said, well, I'll need at least one person to help me with that because it will be all over. So they said, who will take? So I said, Harold. So Harold Thompson and I went into the library. They had the door ajar and he stood outside on the corridor looking at us. How that library was at that time is that as soon as you enter the library, all the local music was on the lower shelves to your right. And the Caribbean and international music were on a larger shelf against your wall to your left. They had instructed us that they wanted us to go back on air and play conscious music, revolutionary music, and make certain announcements. So I went and I pulled out all the Stalin and Valentino and all the conscious music. And I told the guy that I will have to go up the ladder to get the Bob Marley and that kind of music. Because that was among the international music. The problem is that if I go up the ladder, it will be in line of sight through a glass window to the back of the library, and it'll be in open view because there were a lot of shooting taking place outside. So Harold looked at me and said, "How are you going to find that Bob Marley?" I said, "Well, we'll see." So after I pull out enough local music, I told the guy, "Ready to go be ladder now." And Harold was at that point a little shaky, wondering what will happen because sometimes it takes a while to find things. It so happened that when in the moment, I put the ladder, I went up and I pull out the Bob Marley Legends album. And I came down. It took me a couple seconds. From memory, I just figured it was somewhere around there and I pulled it out. Up till today, Harold is amazed about that. Right? So he went back into the studio and Jack and Patrick Goodrich put us back on air and I just played revolutionary music. Every now and then they will ask Edison to say something and they'll tell him what to say and he'll come in and say. But in the studio now, I monitored BBC, I monitored 100 was still on air. Because apparently when they were approaching 100, they barricaded the door so they couldn't get in the building and they stayed on air. So I have an idea what's happening, and from that I realized that it is a national coup and what was really happening. For the next 3 days and 4 nights, I played revolutionary music. There are a couple of things there. One of the guys said, you have to play all types of music. We wanted to play reggae, calypso, Indian songs and all that. So at that point in time, well, Harold stayed and he was assisting both Pat Goodrich and I in control, so he wouldn't have to stay with the others. Because what he said is that they moved the others from the newsroom control building to the real newsroom, which was a large room with all the desks next to TG's car park. And the young guy who was seeing about them, were really terrorizing them, was a fella was a half Indian, half Chinese guy who they were calling Chinese. And he was terrorizing them, so Harold didn't want to stay. So Harold stayed with me there. We played revolutionary music. So when the guy came in and said, "Play all kind of music," Harold was about to say, "Oh, we don't have any Indian songs." I said, No, yeah. So, because what happened at that time is that all the Indian programs were done by Pat Mathura, Moeen Mohammed, and Amjad Fazan Ali. And they had recorded their programs there. So what I did, I went on one of the big reel machines. I queued up one of the songs from one of the tapes. I erased the back announcement, and I zeroed the beginning. And for 3 days and 4 nights, every half hour or so, I'll play that same song. So they had some Indian songs. Right? And I played Valentino, Bob Marley, and different things. I remember sometime, I think it was late in the afternoon, the Saturday or something, there was heavy helicopter gunfire on the roof. Well, Pat and Harold and I would be talking, and I will tell them, I say, if at any point you think that they are storming the building, right? Wherever you are, lie still. Don't move until somebody pick you up. Because from my understanding is that when they storm a building, your instructions are you shoot whatever, move. So once you don't move, you stand a better chance. And we had that. So during those heavy fire, I will go under the console, the space where your legs will go in the chair. And I will have like this Valentino Life is a Stage record. I'll start from the beginning of the Bob Marley and play to the end when I reach the last song, so you have a pause between the track. I will put my hand, get the needle and put it back from the beginning and play it again. until the fire. They gave us those little pack of biscuits and the little pack of juice. Apparently they were crossing the road by TTT to go across to the business place there, and they took all the soft drinks and the biscuits and so on. One point to note there is that they had ways of leaving the building and coming back. Because I remember, one more thing. I don't know if you remember Andy Thomas. He had changed his name, Andy Thomas. He died, right? Well, he was the one in charge of guarding Studio 4. So he was the one guarding me. He was on a chair next to the door, because there's a trap door and then a door to come in to Studio 4. So the door to Studio 4, we checked it and had it open, and he was behind the other door with this long new gun, and he was sleeping on himself most of the time, and I heard him there. But all the others will come in and ask, and they would like to meet me because back then I did a lot of research programs on Bob Marley, Kitchener, Sparrow, and it was very, very popular, Butler and so on. I'll give it that Butler story just now. And they all wanted to meet the Ultimate Selector, the younger one, so they came in the studio and they wanted to see the studio, the Ultimate Selector. And they will all ask if we are winning. Right? And I keep saying, well, we don't know yet, it's too early and whatever. Well, two little stories there. One of the guys came and said, all those Butler interviews you played in some special I did, do you want to hear some of those? No, those Butler tapes were in the Trinidad archive. And back then, the archive was on the 3rd floor, the last room in the third floor, and the third floor had a corridor, and the one side of the corridor, we had rooms, and the other side you had these ventilation blocks about 6 inches square. So it is a very vulnerable area. So I was telling myself it would be dangerous to go all the way up to the archive room, walk up those flight of stairs with shooting going on outside. So I told the guy quickly, I said, listen, those tapes are in the archive. We are recataloguing the archive, and all updates in the mess will be virtually impossible to find those tapes. He said, okay. So I got away with that, right? At some point also, they came and they collected all the keys for the vehicles because they wanted to use the vehicles to block off the driveway.
Right.
The vehicle I was driving was parked directly in front of the door, and there was a concrete roof above that. I don't know if you remember that. So I thought I was it for my vehicle. They shoot in and out. But I had a kill switch on my vehicle. So when they came for my keys, I gave it to them. I said, listen, it will be difficult to start because the vehicle had starting. I couldn't tell them I have a kill switch. And I have to go to the kill switch. So days after, my vehicle stayed, all the other vehicles moved. McDonald Holder vehicle was parked next to my vehicle, and they couldn't move his vehicle. And there was this large hole on his left fender, about 2 inches in diameter, that penetrated the fender and went into his engine and damaged the car. So I don't know what kind of gun was that. And my vehicle was untouched. but I was told after that both vehicles were wired in case they come, they were going to blow up those. Because eventually, I'll be jumping a bit. Eventually, when we came back to the building, I looked under the vehicle over, and I started and left it idling there because I was packing home for almost 2 hours before I went home. But that's another story. Let's get back right away now to that piece of information. All the reports that I've been hearing, people said even the leader of the coup alluded to the fact that the main reason for the coup was because the police were occupying their lands and they don't want to move and so on. That is not quite correct. What really happened there is that the Jamaat was occupying a piece of state land there, and the authorities didn't want them to go further, to encroach further. So the army set up a camp in the place that they wanted to start occupying, close to where they build the secondary school now. And there was a little contention about the land and whatever. So that was one of the factors. Another factor is that back then the organization was doing some social work, quite impressive. They were dealing with young people and different things. Of course, they were doing some other things that we can't condone at all. But they were really trying to help some people and ease their comfort in terms of poverty and unemployment and so on. And remember, back then, the NAR government had some austerity measures that was quite harsh on the population, and they were against that. But what the guys were saying, and they said repeatedly in coming in, that the last straw was the statue they wanted to build for Gene Miles. And I want you to remember that. This is the first time this is coming in the public domain. The last straw was the fact that the NAR government was about to erect a statue. They had just passed it in Parliament or something in honor of Gene Miles. We all know the Gene Miles story. And that was the last straw. I heard that about 10 times during that period from different guys. Right? So obviously they would have been brainwashed and given reason to do this. Another thing is that quite a few of the guys who came in fact, most of them didn't know they were coming to partake in a coup, They were just instructed to come there. Yes, they were instructed to come there and do different things. And when they reached, they were handed guns and told what to do. Because some of the guys apparently weren't pleased to be in that position, but what could they do? And in fact, some of them were very frightened and they were crying at different things. Okay? Another notable point I would like to make is that Edison Carr was our voice on air. Patrick Goodrich manned the equipment to make sure we are on air. I upload everything. But Harold Thompson, we elected Harold Thompson to be our voice in negotiating with the people. The head of our section was this guy, I think it's Shavaz or something, who ended up being the women football coach. What's his name? Jamal, right. Apparently he was in charge. And Harold kept telling him that, listen, we are innocent bystanders. We came to work like normal else. We are not here to confront anybody, just anybody. We will abide and we give you the assurance that we will not try to overpower you or do anything out of order. But we want you to give us the assurance that we would not be killed. And they told us, once you follow instructions, we have no instructions to kill you. And he kept on that, and thanks to Harold. And that gave us a lot of hope. And he kept saying that every few hours, he'd keep telling him and telling him, remember, we agree on that, we agree on that. And he pushed that. And I think that was very good too. Another little side note is that in Central Control, we had a dedicated telephone line. It didn't go through the switchboard, and the wiring was completely secure. Nobody knew where it was. And that line was used in case anybody had to reach their family or friends. You remember back then we didn't have cell phones. Or if management wanted to reach us in an emergency. So we all knew the number. I think it's 6222415 or something. And I said, well, nobody could stay long on the number to tap the line. It'll be free. Back then, I had a property at 82 Robert Street in Woodbrook. I was supposed to finish work and be home, But there was a program to go on 9/5 that wasn't packaged. A 10-minute feature or something. So while I was doing something, I told Pat, well, I'll do it one time. Because I was to come back 8:30 to do something else. And when I stayed to do that, that is when they came. Vernon Gonzalez was supposed to record that program, but he had left to go to Tobago for Great Race or something. My wife was expecting me home, and I told her I'll come, and I'll come back and do some of the recording. I used to do all kinds of things back then. So we live on Robert Street, and there's a video club, the second building on Gray Street. So my son was just a couple months old, or about a year and a half. So they normally will drive to the video club, but that day they decided to walk, so they walk across. And coming back from the video club, they saw the park empty, the playground in Woodbrook between Murray and Roberts. So my son always liked to swing there, and there's always a crowd. So he said, Mom, swing, the park empty. So they went and they were swinging in the park. While this thing going on, they didn't know, oblivious of what was around them. As it approached 7, because back then I used to listen to the news every day, she said, well, my wife told me, time to go, we have to listen to the news. So they went home. When she put on the news, the news panorama, she saw Abu Bakr on the news with Dominic Halperson and so on, saying that there's a coup. She called the number to tell me there's a coup, come home. So when the phone rang, the person who was in control with Pat, Harold was in control at that time, look at them and said, why your phone ringing? I thought probably disconnect all the lines. So Pat said, Harold said, no, relax. This is a private line that they just call for the workers and so on. He said, well, answer it. So Harold answered, hello. so my wife recognized his voice. She said, Harold, can I speak to Sookram? Really important. He said, this is Harold Thompson here. Sookram cannot come to the phone right now, but he is okay. He is in studio. Have a good day. And he hanged up. So then she realized that we were under manners too. So that was there's another story about that. And this is new information too. Because my home called the radio station during the coup, after the coup when they're doing their investigation and so on, special branch monitored my telephone and watched my house for a month.
Wow.
Sometime after, A few months after that, a guy came and said he wanted to speak to my wife for some reason. And I said, well, and I asked him who he was, and she was special branch. I said, well, you're free to speak to her, but in my presence. But I realized something was wrong because she had now driven off to go and do something, and Alun was home. So I said I could come back tomorrow and we'll talk. So when he came back, he said you're a special branch, and he gave us a detailed listing of everything we did for you last month. How we went up by the tracking station up Patna, and we went down the hill and I caught a fish and I came back up. And how I went up in the mountain in Cayman Hill and we spent a night and there was a bright light. And how we went to Tobago and I parked the vehicle and we were bathing in Store Bay. And we went somewhere up Grand River. Because those days we were very active. So I said, very good, at least we had security. So he talk, and whatever. And there were some other things, but I don't want to bring it up. And I knew the code when they're monitoring your phone. That was given to me years ago from somebody at TSCT. And I knew that my phone was monitored. Coming back to the coup, basically, that was it. A little point is that one of the guys who was in the studio with us, he was a red Spanish guy, 20 muscles and so on. He had a gun. It looked brand new. The barrel was about a 3-inch bore in diameter, and it had one set of holes, so I don't know what kind of gun is that. And but it looked really impressive. It was about 4 or 5 feet long, the whole thing. And
that would have been an SMG.
Oh, well, whatever it was. Well, you'll know. He sat behind Studio 4 there, and he's holding a gun. And somebody, I think Harold came, nice gun. He said, you want to hold it? I said, no, I don't know. But you know about that is that after the coup, I saw a picture of this guy, and he was killed trying to storm the San Fernando police station. So sometime during the coup, he left Radio Trinidad and continued action. You understand?
Okay.
I also want to believe, on a side, that the true figures of fatality during the coup has been seriously underestimated or changed for whatever purpose. Because I know for a fact people who were killed in the playground in Woodbrook and they are unaccounted for. One in particular, he was the only Caucasian vagrant in Woodbrook, homeless people. And after the coup, we couldn't find him. And one of the other homeless persons said he was shot and killed. And he didn't come up in the list. Because during the coup, there were snipers on roofs of many buildings all over Port of Spain, doing whatever they could. Especially places like Tatel building, people all up there shooting at Radio Trinidad, trying anybody who moved. Well, coming back to the actual Radio Trinidad building there was a hierarchy among the people who stormed us, right? Initially, about 25 of the Muslims came in. It could be more. And they were moving freely from Radio Trinidad to TDT. One of the guys who was probably in his 40s and probably weighed about 250 pounds, he reported to another young guy who was probably in his late teens. And the guy sent somebody to instruct him while he was in the studio that it is his turn to go up on the roof. And he told the guy who he sent that, no, you're not going on the roof. They're shooting up there and he's so big, it's dangerous for him. And the other guy who instructed him came back in the studio and he was angry and forced him to go up in the roof. And that was the last time I saw that guy. And sometime after, the first guy who came to instruct him said, that the fellow was killed on the roof. It was a big guy. That is Radio Trinidad roof. He was killed on the roof. Right? So, we survived that part. During the whole period, we had instructions to work by. They say if you want to use the washroom, because they had two sets of toilets, one by the security guard in the front, but that was open view of the parking lot, nobody would use that. And then there was one between the studios and the administration section there, right after the chief operator's office. So they said, if you want to use the washrooms, you tell whoever is watching you, and then when they walk in the corridor, you put your hands up and say, coming through, so the person will hear you and surprise anybody. So we did that. They kept talking to us, and at some point, they told us that they are consolidating and they're going to move us to TDT. I think that was after about 3 days, that they will move us to TDT. But to get to TDT, we had to go across a parking lot between TDT and Radio Trinidad. When I told everybody, we were a bit skeptical and some people were scared, so they were saying, well, we can stay here, we're not damaging anybody, we don't want to go across the parking lot, it's dangerous. When they said that was during the day, so they said, no, well, we'll wait, and when things get safer, they'll take us across. The morning of, after the third day or something, to the fourth night, how it worked, a morning we got up. Those who were in that room, they slept. They came in the studio. So I didn't get much sleep, I played revolutionary music for 3 days and 4 nights. And I've never been compensated for it. After sending a claim to Radio Trinidad. Yeah. They came and they said that the Muslims left. They abandoned us and they went across to TDT. So we sneaked out and we watched, and we saw the back door by the engineering workshop was wide open, and then the corridor was wide open. So there was a locker right next to the door to go towards the washroom there. So we put a steel locker. So we pushed that locker to block the entrance, so that it would be secure there. And we all gathered in Studio 3 to decide what to do. So we had a discussion, and we realized that we cannot go through any of the doors or the exits, because on approaching we could be shot, because they had markmen out there and the heavy shooting. So we sat and we thought and we decided, and in the end we decided to go through there was a back door in Studio 3. There was a secret door behind some shelves with reel-to-reel tapes that led into a back workshop where there was an outside door to get to the radiodiffusion department in the garage in the back there. So we decided to go through there. And right outside that door was the wall to go into one of the buildings to the back of in St. Clair there, the other street. So 10 of us, we went through that little thing there, and we went to that room. But before that, Edison went, apparently they couldn't cut the telephone or they just unplug it. So he plugged back on that telephone and he made a call to whoever he had, saying that the Muslims abandoned us and we want to leave. So whoever in the army spoke to didn't believe us. They said, okay, well apparently they're going to give up the hospital. That's why the morning or the 4th day or something. So we were told that they're sending a bus to pick up the hostages at the Red House, and when they finish, they will pick us up and then go. So when they came with that story, right, I said, that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? It's not that you have one bus in the world, and if you pick up the Prime Minister and the senior ministers, you're going to bring them and pick up other people and then go, right? That story doesn't make sense. So they said, well, let's sit wait a while and see. So when they called back, after 2 hours, Edison called back, and they said the same thing. So we said, you see this? It's nothing more that they didn't believe what we were saying then. They probably thought that, the Muslim instructed us to do that. Right. So we all agree on that. Everybody agree on that. So because we had to understand, so listen, we don't know what will happen if we do that. We know to save to at least going to the parking lot because there was no direct shot from that side though and go over the wall. If anybody wanted to do anything else, we can't force anybody. If they wanted to stay or whatever. And in the end, we all agreed that we go over the wall. We came out and we started climbing over the wall. I can't remember the first person who reached the wall. There was some bag wire, different things. He put some cloth on it. As soon as the first person went up, there was a soldier on the other side in that building who pointed a gun at him and said, don't move. So we were all there hearing. We didn't move either. He said, who are you? So whoever it was said, oh, yes, from Trinidad. He said, how many with you? And he said, it's 10 of us. He said, well, okay. And then other soldiers came and they all pointing guns at us. So he said, okay, climb over. One at a time. When they climb over, from that distance, they asked you to lift up your shirt or your jersey, whatever you had, and drop your pants. So they see that you're not strapped with any ammunition or anything. And they did that. After each person did that, they went forward and they still pat them down. And they took us in a room after all climbing, and we lie down, face down. They said, listen to this. So all of us face down here. We're going to ask one person to come up here and write down the names of everyone. If at the end of that we call names and your name not here, you will be shot. Right? So fortunately, because for instance Cheryl, I only knew her first name, I didn't know it was Haywood. And somebody else may not know everybody's name. Fortunately, the person they asked to write down the name was Darren Watson, who was the security guard. So he knew everybody. Right. So he wrote down the 10 names. They came back and they said, when they call your name, you say yes and they put up your hand, but keep your face down. So we did that and everybody were identified. After that, they put us on the back of a tray of a pickup to sit there, and they drove us to Cumberland Hill. Okay. We went up to Cumberland Hill. When we went up to Cumberland Hill, we met people like, I remember Clive Pantin, Bernard Pantin, I think Myers, and a few other people there, a few other ministers. And they had doctors examine us, and so on and so on. So the first thing I asked is that when we are going home. And I asked each person that, and nobody could give me an answer. Back then, I think the curfew for that area was 6 o'clock or something. So I asked them, are we under arrest? They said no. I said, listen to me. I live in Woodbrook. My wife and son is home alone, and I'm not spending the night in this barracks. Because while we were there, we see Muslims coming in with the face bust up and this, that, and shots, and been walking and so on. And I didn't think that was a safe place. So I keep telling each person, ask me what you want to ask me. I'm going home tonight. If you don't drop me home, I'm walking. And I keep telling everybody that. When it was about 5 o'clock, because that might happen, so I go in. By 5 o'clock, there was some doctor who lived in Woodbrook, came up there, and he took me home. And I went home, and my vehicle stayed at Radio Trinidad. We had enough supplies and all that to last us. In fact, we shared with a few of the neighbors. There's an old lady living up by us. Opposite, she was going to the corner to buy some corned beef or something, and the army made her lie down on the paper and all that. She got scared. She came back and asked us to buy something, and we gave her some food. After all that, when they hand over back the building, the then program director, Archie Henry, called me and said he wanted to go up to the building to get his briefcase and so on. If I could go with him. I said, sure. So he passed in to pick me up and I went. And I took a walk with my spare key. So that was very important because it gave me a chance to walk through the whole building. And I saw all the bullet shells all over the place, all the damage and so on and things. So I confronted the fear of that building then. So that helped in the healing process. So he walked through the whole building. Of course, he didn't find his suitcase and all that. But the only loss I had is that I had a little pouch with my documents and $60 in Studio 3. And when I was in Studio 4, I told one of the guys, so listen, I left my pouch there, can you get it for me? And he bought it for me, but I had everything in the pouch except the $60. So I said, so I thought to myself, I said, how petty this could be? You come to take over the country and you steal $60 from me, but of course I didn't raise the issue or bring it up at all. And that was.
Were you all ever compensated by the state?
Nope, never compensated by the state, never compensated by Trinidad Broadcasting. In fact, the plaque we got, which you saw there, that time, the then managing director grudgingly agreed to do that. And I was interested in writing the words for the plaque, because back then I was promoted to assistant program director under Archie Henry. And there are some other things that are not quite pleasant, but I really wouldn't want to share that now. But what I can say is that Trinidad Broadcasting Company could have done more for us. The media in general have, including Guardian Media, have really ignored the fact that Radio Trinidad workers were part of the hostage. Everybody talking about the Red House. In fact, 610 NBS, who was never part of it, will get more recognition than us. The only communication I had about anybody is that I got a letter the day before, so it came late, inviting me to be part of the Commission of Inquiry. It was last minute, one, and two, from the wording of it, it was a pappy show. They said nothing will come off of this. So how could you invite me to give my views in front of a commission, answer whatever question, knowing that whatever we say, nothing will come off of it? I think that was the wrong premise to start in the first place. I think that was disrespectful. At no time did members of the coup apologize or anything. Because I remember one day I was in Grand Bazaar waiting for my wife, who went into, I think it was Giant Supermarket at that time. And I was standing next to the car at the side of the building. And Jamal, who was the judge motive, he came marching with some young people there. And when he saw me standing, he recognized me. And he smiled and waved and thing, and I completely ignored him. The same thing I did for Abu and his wife. One day we were chopping a step and his wife was smiling at us. So as far as I'm concerned, they don't exist, and whatever they say or do doesn't come into my sphere, because I think what they did is a terrible wrong, and there's no remorse. They never apologize for it, and we'll proceed. I hold no animosity or ill feeling, but I think they did a terrible injustice to the country, because if you look back, in 1990, Trinidad and Tobago lost its innocence, because before 1990, we didn't have that prevalence of guns. Even the protective services didn't walk around with all these fancy guns. They'll have a little pocket revolver or so on. And 1990 is when it started after that, because it was said that most of the guns that came in never accounted for. The state didn't receive this, and they went into circulation, and that fueled all this activity. If you go back and check the figures, check the murder rate before and after 1990, check the amount of guns on the streets, the violence, and the society. So gun became a normal place. So that now if you walk around and you see any officers with all kind of fancy guns, even security people and people you don't show their train, it is a natural thing. Before 1990, it was a strange thing. You understand? So you can say 1990 is when Trinidad lost its innocence. One point I would like to make, anybody, because I know some radio station owner tried to put it in a song, comparing 1990 with 1970, there's no comparison. It's two entirely different things, and anybody who want to make that comparison is seriously illiterate. You understand? Uninformed, doesn't understand history, and doesn't understand anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my brother, this was a very, very comprehensive account, and thank you so much. Well, you have since moved on, but would you like, at least for the state, okay, from the Commission of Inquiry, there were recommendations made.
Yes,
and
I read it.
One of them was to enhance the security, the different arms of the security, different arms of the protective service, to upgrade their weaponry and all of that. But one of the other recommendations was to compensate the victims of this insurrection. Would you still like to see that happen?
Yes, I think the victims should be compensated. People like Emmett Hennessy still has a lot of trauma. I know Mark Holder never fully recovered from this, because I confronted the building shortly after, and then, yes, Radio Trinidad did pay for some counseling with Dr. Waveney Richards, which helped a lot, but some of the people really never got over that. Personally, if I receive any compensation, I will donate it to some charity, because I don't want to benefit from anyone's misfortune, anyone's mistake, and things like that. I prefer to earn everything I spend. For the benefit of all the others, I think it should be done a long time ago. And if they do that, I will use whatever portion, 100% of whatever portion allotted to me, towards helping somebody else, maybe some of the other victims or some travelers, of course. So personally, I don't want to benefit from anything else. But I think it should have been done. I think the leader and all the participants supposed to by now understand what they did was a terrible injustice to the entire nation, and it pushed us back by decades, what they did there. And they should apologize. And no one should take any of these people seriously. In fact, I don't think many of those 119 are still alive. You could probably do your research and see. More than half of those might not have been alive. They would have finished their journey. I'm rejoicing about that. You see, God, each of us is on a journey of life to find ourselves and to fulfill our purpose. I'm not judging these people. I'm not saying that it shouldn't have happened. It happened. We have to accept that. That's how life is. But it doesn't mean that in going forward, we cannot apologize for when you do something wrong and move on, and people accept an apology. But if you do a terrible crime and you don't have personal remorse in your heart, then you didn't learn either. And going forward, but I'm not even judging you by saying that. For instance, one of the reasons why I agreed to do this interview, because you're a man I admire. I admire your passion, your drive. I admire your humility and your humanity, which other people really don't have, because I know the kind of work you do with all kinds of people, and we go way back. And your journey, you have many trials and tribulations, which is good, you understand? And I admire that. That's why I agreed to do this. Most people, no newspaper have ever asked me to say something or do something. Nobody asked me to be a part of a panel, so I couldn't say yes or no. You know what I mean? Because I'm not interested in position and power and being in the limelight and all that. That is not part of what I'm about. That's not part of my journey. This is being there, done that, and all these different things. But in our journey, if we cannot ease the burden of others while we travel, what are we here for? You know what I mean? We cannot eat for you, sleep for you, go through your trial for you. All we can do is to be of comfort to you. So let's do that. And if you push your hand in a hole and a jet bite you, you wouldn't push back your hand there unless you have precaution. You know what I mean? So if somebody did you wrong, or a spirit is vexatious to your vibes and so on, you stay away from that. You move with positivity, and you proceed on your journey. So that is how, without judging people, I know that once your vibes isn't right, I would not associate with you. I'll move along and do my part. Because in life, I don't beg somebody to help them. But all those who ask for help within my purview, if I can, I will help and move on. I don't follow people. I subscribe to issues. So you find that I might be involved with a project you're involved with, but I might be involved with another project. So things to do with the environment, things to do with children, things to do with justice, things to do with the elderly, I will help with that. Things to do with farmers, culture, and all these kind of things. So I will help with that. And that is it, because I understand life, I understand myself, and I've always tried for excellence in whatever I do. I will continue to do that. So my friend, thank you for this opportunity to talk with you and to share. I wish you all the best in all your endeavors.
Yes, my brother.
Godspeed and good luck.
On behalf of Natasha and I, we say thank you very much too. God bless. Okay, so take care, man.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.